Found the right spot.
Perfect.
Wow, it's a real slice of paradise you got out here.
Thanks a lot. Watch the dog treats on the lawn.
Oh, sure. Nice
Good to see you.
Alicia.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having us here at your studio.
Yeah. Look at just around the corner here. The bass I used on the Stomp and Tom tour.
Oh my goodness, I love stand-up bass.
I took piano lessons at age 6, but I wasn't really interested in that at the time. I was more interested in the farm tractors that were going up and down the road, and it wasn't really until maybe I was 12 years old that I started taking guitar lessons and then really connected with it. But I do remember my neighbor's boyfriend and her brother as well. They had a guitar, and I just remember being a little kid and just hearing the sound of one string being plucked and just falling in love with the sound of a guitar. And then a couple of years later, I heard someone else brought one to our local church, whatever. And just the sound of one single string, I couldn't believe how good that sounded.
Wow.
Yeah, and I thought, well, I'd love to be able to play guitar, and not knowing if I'd be able to learn or anything at that point. I had taken a growth spurt, and Mom and Dad forgot to enroll me in hockey that year. I think it was for the best for sure. And Dad had picked up an old guitar at a flea market and said, I'll make a deal with you if you can learn to play a couple songs on that. We'll buy you a better guitar. And my neighbor, Marg Rudolph, at the time, she rolled her own cigarettes, and I'd go down and visit her. She'd always make date squares and tea and things like that. But she knew how to play a guitar a little bit and showed me how to play 2 songs, and I went back up scared to death because I was always an introvert, shy kid. I was scared to sing in front of Mom and Dad, but I did, and then they sent me guitar lessons. And John McClellan from New Glasgow was a great Chet Atkins style player and showed me kind of the basics to get me going, and then jamming with other people in school. Of course, West Pictou back in the day, most of my musicians friends played heavy metal. Which is,
I wondered about that.
I was kind of like the odd man out,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
You always were drawn to more of a folk music as opposed to the pop music?
Yeah. I felt like, like John Denver sings with Metallica or something. It was pretty weird. I always liked the folk music. I always liked the sound of acoustic music, and I loved heavy metal too, but I didn't play it. But I played in rock bands and country bands over the years growing up, but was always pulled toward that folky sound. And probably because the first live concert I ever saw was in 1981. It was a John Allen Cameron concert, and Stan Rogers was on the bill.
Nova Scotia music used to be a very definable package of Cayleys and Celtic and fiddles, and it's no longer that way. How do you sell or market Nova Scotia music in today's music scene?
Yeah, I think that's it's a microcosm of a larger evolution, which has to do with the I suppose the way the world in general has evolved and developed through things like immigration and cross-pollinization in art and language and all of the rest in industry. So if you look at Nova Scotia and the way that music, before the business, right? Music itself as an art form or an activity or a hobby started, it came along as basically a hobby, part of the social and cultural fabric. And most of the people who settled here initially were either of the Gaelic Celtic culture or perhaps the Acadian or French culture. And of course we had Mi'kmaq, but in all of those cultures, music is very, very much similar to food and religion and just conversation and meals is part of life. Part of when you gather, part of when you mourn, when you celebrate. So that's where it started with Nova Scotia, as with everything else, until a point in time where it became more diverse. The population became more diverse, and so with different populations and different cultures and languages, so comes the art form that follows, and that's music. It's all sorts of things. So, you could have obviously a university course in this, but when the business matured, let's say when it really matured in the 1990s in Atlantic Canada, it seemed for a while that anybody who could play guitar, fiddle, piano, sing a song, do a dance, had a shot at being a star. And there was a 5, 6, 7 year period where you know, wow, you had the Rankins, you had Rita, you had, and they'd just come on the heels of Anne Murray and John Allen Cameron and others, and then you had Natalie and Ashley and others and others and others. And it seemed as though, wow, this is great, it's going to go on forever. But it really was, I call it the Riverdance syndrome, because at the time, Riverdance was a massive international, sort of like Saturday Night Fever was in 1978, you know, and then from there you get this disco craze. Well, we had a Celtic craze in Atlantic Canada, and it didn't last. I mean, it interestingly, it settled out to be closer to where it started. There are still plenty of people playing and dancing and singing and writing and recording, but it's balanced out in, when you look at the commerce side of it, it's balanced out to be closer to where it started.
When you're in a small area, like, you know, people think Toronto, that's where all in the center, like Vancouver, Toronto, but I think the cultural landscape of the area kind of sometimes it assigns itself to the music scene. So I think, you know, when you think of Nova Scotia for the rest of Canada, they think lobsters and fishing and all of
And
that.
fiddles.
And fiddles and Celtic influence is great, but it gets focused there, just like the tourism side of things. But there's all these other genres that have been around for ages. There was this little time where the grunge scene happened in the 90s, but you know, the dance scene, the world music, the jazz and all that, it's been really vibrant all the way through. But we've only ever really focused on some genres, but that's changing, I think, now with the internet. You can go find anything you want, so.
There's so much talent in this part of the world, and we all learn from one another. And because I've co-written so much over the years, it's maybe spread the diversity within my own music, so that my songs aren't too samey.
Samey.
Yeah, samey the clown. Here's the song you heard yesterday, kids.
We're going to watch for that one on the next
Yeah.
album. Dave, you have an impressive roster of awards and nominations under your belt. How does it feel to have that kind of recognition?
Well, yeah, it always feels good, of course. You can never hear it too many times that, hey, you're doing something good.
That's fair.
You know.
I've been alive for 1,000 years. I've been alive for 1,000 years. I lost my talk. The talk you took away when I was a little girl at Shivanakity School.
Antoine Grisolier. Una Grisolier. Nana Gilario. Baby days you be an extraordinary Mijikina War.
If anyone doesn't know, who are Alan Syllaboy and the Thundermakers?
Well, I'm an artist, Alan Syllaboy. I've been a painter all my life, doing art all the time. And we always had some music as part of what I do. And I've known Hubert here since 1969, way back there. We're dating ourselves, but we've been working off and on ever since then. So we're pretty happy to be here. Him and the band and the Thundermakers. One of our first shows ever was at St. Yves with Jerry Grinelli was on drums with us, and Dave Gunnan joined us as well. So, you know, it was a big night for us. And actually, we're going to play there soon. We're going back. This is full circle for us. So we're looking forward to playing at St. Yves.
Where it began? That's
Loaded question.
loaded question, yeah. But the drum, the earth being our mother, the drum represents the heartbeat of Mother Earth. When you're in your mother's womb for 9 months, that's all you hear is your mother's heartbeat. So we're all connected to the sacredness of the drum in that way. So the drum itself represents the sacredness of your mother's heartbeat, or the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And we acknowledge that. And I think everybody's really connected to that, you know, like every culture has a drum in their culture somehow. But that's what it represents. That's where it came from. It's the heartbeat of your mother.
I love that because when we were listening to you practice earlier, it was so reminiscent of a heartbeat to me, and I don't think I've ever picked that up before when I've seen you guys perform. So it's really great to hear that explanation.
Yeah, it's especially when children, when they hear the drum, that's, they really get you really get their attention, because they're connected to that. Because of being in the 9 months in the womb, and all you hear is the heartbeat of your mother.
With the Wild West show, you traveled around.
Could you tell us a bit about your collaboration with Alan Syliboy?
Yeah, well, I've known of Alan for many years. I remember I bought a T-shirt back in the '90s at a store in Pictou that were selling his Red Crane design shirts, and I always loved his artwork. And then, of course, over the years, I discovered that he's a musician too, and not only a musician but a songwriter. So we kind of connect from time to time, and he said, I've got a great story about this character named Dr. Lone Cloud that might make a good song. And he said, and he dropped over. He came over here and told me the whole story, and I was like, wow, what an incredible life that guy lived. So we just started writing in the song, and we came up with the song as it's been released. Dr. Lone Cloud's Medicine Show, it's called. And
Did you think you would actually get to the place you're at now where you're playing music professionally in your career?
I don't think I really thought that. I always loved playing music, but I went and got my commerce degree, and thinking that I would do something in business. I wasn't sure what. I didn't think I'd be able to make a living playing music. And I started writing songs like crazy in university. It was almost like a form of procrastination. Everybody, all my buddies, were like, studying for the finance exam, and I was like, hey guys, I just wrote a song. and they were like, yeah, that's a good song. You should be playing here at the Gorsebrook Lounge or wherever. And I started playing a lot in Halifax at that time. I was already playing a lot in Pictou County. I started, playing for my first paid gig. I was 15 years old, and every Friday night I played at the Stonehouse restaurant in Pictou. And then when I turned 16, I was playing 4 nights a week there, and I was working in a lumberyard 40 hours a week, and then I'd go in and sing in the night time. And I grew up like my mom and dad. My mom's a nurse, dad's a plumber, but they both have that entrepreneurial spirit. So I grew up with parents that were risk takers and always working and doing, and I just maybe applied that to the music thing, and it worked. And I remember, music industry professionals here, they were trying to help me out, and they would often express concern for me that my songwriting was too regional, and it probably wouldn't make it outside of here. And they were probably right, but for some reason it did make it outside of here. I'm not sure. And I remember when I was starting to get booked to places like Texas, I was asking the program director, like, why me? Why do you want me to go to Texas? I'm singing songs about dead guys from Pictou County. How does that have universal appeal? She said, your choruses are universal, and the characters that you write about are characters that we have in our towns too, that we can kind of connect to your music in that way. So
I have no musical talent whatsoever, so I'm in awe of everything that you do here. You, in fact, composed our theme song.
Yeah, that was fun theme to do. Yeah.
So if people don't know you, what is it that you actually do here?
So here I do music for film and television and multimedia. So it can be any type of music, from like heavy metal to full-on orchestral. Just whatever the film or the production needs. So this is a bit of a blend between the digital world and the analog world, because I come from that era where everything was done, to tape or whatever. But so I use a lot of analog gear here. But we try and play as many instruments as possible. So there's a drum room and all of that. Nice. So yeah, just to keep that real human feel. Well, I've been a musician. When I went to Dal for a couple of years before the band I was in got signed, so that would have been in the 90s, and so I've been in the music scene ever since. And then the next band I was in got signed in Germany, and we toured there a lot. And in around the mid-2000s, I think, I had to figure out a way of staying home because my wife was pregnant. I was thinking, I can't go on the road. And then I sort of had been starting to do little short films and stuff for friends who were in the film industry. And a person who I know well, who I actually knew from when I was a kid, he came and said, do you want to do this documentary? So I always was kind of in it a bit. But then when I decided I need to figure out a way of staying home, I just started to turn the bow of the ship towards doing scoring because I could do it from home. And I've been doing that ever since, and performing when I can.
I've always been interested in music because growing up, my father sang in the choir in the church. He also played the fiddle and guitar, and we used to have jam sessions in our living room. And from that point on, I loved listening to music, and then I come to want to play music, and be that rock star and all that, and that stereotype image, as a teenager. And it don't work like that. It don't work, that rock star, whatever, nearly killed me, like a lot of stars do. It's not a true image of what music is all about. To us, music is a medicine. It's a form of a prayer, really. Like when we do our music, it's like we're doing a ceremony, and people really feel that. That it's not just music. It's not just for listening. It's for feeling also. It's sharing your heart, your spirit, through the song.
We have incredible diversity and huge talent in every genre. But the other thing that we have here is we have a unique, identifiable sound that's, if people hear music, they say, well, that's East Coast music, or that's from Nova Scotia. And I don't think we should turn our backs on that either. I think that we should maybe try to make sure that we're always embracing that and pushing that as well, because that's what that helps bring tourists to the area, and helps bring attention to all the other styles of music. If it wasn't for Rita and the Rankins and Ashley and Natalie or Anne Murray or these artists that had broken through at a high level, and the Bears, all kinds of artists that are touring from here. Way back in the 90s when the music industry was at its peak here, those artists that broke through, that had that uniquely identifiable East Coast sound, helped bring attention to all of our other genres of music.
You mentioned some real heavy hitters that have come out of Nova Scotia, but it feels like it's been a while since someone of that magnitude has been around. Do you think that we'll see that again?
Quick answer is yes, I do think we'll see it again, but we won't see the frequency and we won't see the volume. Again, when you look at that 1990s into the early 2000s period, there was nothing like it before, and there's been nothing like it since. And again, that wasn't only Celtic music. You do have to think about what happened with people like, the alternative pop, alternative rock scene, predominantly at Halifax, becoming the Seattle of the East. I mean, that also happened around that time period. And I think it was a combination of discovery and the maturation of the business itself, and accessibility through technology and so on, that people could get to other people. So I think the hopeful side of me says there's always going to be great talent, there's always going to be great performers, and yes, people will get lucky, whether it's time, place, and meeting the right person. But I don't think you'll see that kind of frequency, like I say, or that kind of volume. The business has, like all things that have to do with intellectual property and the creative process, they've all changed. And on one day, it's a good thing because it's so openly accessible. But on the next day, it's a real problem for that very same reason, because there's just so many people doing so much stuff every single day. It's really hard to stand out.
The scene has evolved in many ways, but it has evolved along like anywhere. Like you can get anything you want online now, so you can seek out a lot of different music in Halifax, which is really great. But back when we started, there was a certain sort of road you had to go on, and sometimes if you didn't fit in, that was very difficult because you were playing shows where you were the only, experimental world music pop rock act. And everyone else was Celtic or everyone else was grunge. So now I think it's evolved in a good way, but also in the same way the music industry has changed, where we're not all lining up together to get the new U2 album or REM or something. We're all standing outside the record store and sharing the experience together. We're going for our own little, our likes and dislikes are much more separated. So I think that with knowing about all the music genres around here, we've lost a bit of something, that sort of community where everyone's, going for that one band because that's all we knew,
that
right?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
And it's so there's a bit of win-lose in that.
I think a lot of my dreams were fulfilled by my career and with my band and Alan's band and with drum. So yeah, it's we performed for the Queen, and
That's incredible.
2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver.
Wow.
But the ideal gig is on Parliament Hill on Canada Day. To perform on there, and we did that. And Dollywood is one of another highlight, of my career, But I think right now we're fulfilling our obligation to share to the people.
If I'm lucky enough to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, that's good enough for me. I don't take any of this for granted, and I feel lucky. I don't need more. I just want to be able to keep doing what I'm doing and keep writing songs and keep putting out records and traveling around and I feel fortunate to be able to do it.
What we're trying to do here with our music is kind of introduce people back to themselves.
I love that explanation.
Yeah, like music is such a universal language, and it's an amazing way to share your culture with other cultures without necessarily needing to speak exactly the same language.
Yes, this is one of my compositions called Sign of an Eagle. It's a sign of mine to the Indian people. It's a sign of right. Whoa, whoa. He takes our prayers far the sky and guides journey of life. Teach us balance when he spreads his wings and glides. Symbol of life.